Silent for thousands of years, ancient Egyptian writings are finally finding their voice. For centuries, countless hieroglyphs have remained a sealed book, their stories locked away in plain sight. But a revolutionary new translator is now stepping into the temple, one that never sleeps or forgets a single symbol. Artificial intelligence is being trained to read the world's oldest mystery novel, cracking codes that have stumped experts for generations. By the end of this, you will understand how machines are helping us hear the whispers of pharaohs and priests for the very first time. We are on the verge of discovering lost pharaohs and decoding magical spells meant to be secret forever. What forgotten story would you most want to hear from the ancient world? This mountain of mysteries is not a small one. We have translated the Rosetta Stone and decoded the tombs of great pharaohs, yet this is only the very tip of the pyramid. For every famous inscription we can read, thousands more remain silent, gathering dust in forgotten museum vaults or fading slowly on remote temple walls. These are not just the grand pronouncements of kings, they are the everyday writings of an entire civilization. Imagine the personal letters written on brittle papyrus detailing a family's hopes and fears. Picture the dry administrative records, the lists of grain and livestock that tell us how a great empire was actually run. Then there are the magical spells written to protect the dead on their journey to the afterlife, their powerful words meant to be secret for all time. Obscure royal decrees carved into stone and casual graffiti scratched by a worker in a moment of boredom each hold a potential key. Every single one of these untranslated marks is a lost piece of history, a voice waiting for its chance to speak across thousands of years. What forgotten story might be hiding in a simple potter's ledger or in a prayer whispered onto a piece of broken pottery? The sheer scale of what we cannot yet read is both daunting and thrilling. So why have human minds, for all their brilliance, failed to open this entire library? The challenges are as layered as the desert sands. First, time itself is the enemy. Thousands of years of wind, water, and even the gentle touch of tourists have worn countless inscriptions down to faint ghosts. A crucial symbol might be nothing more than a shallow scrape in the stone, its meaning erased by a slow, patient decay. Then there is the language itself. We have a solid grasp of Middle Egyptian, the classic form used on most famous monuments. But the ancient Egyptian language evolved dramatically over 3,000 years, splintering into regional dialects and developing new, obscure grammatical rules. A text from a remote temple or a late-period tomb might use words and sentence structures so rare that they appear nowhere in our existing dictionaries. Some priests even created deliberate ciphers, writing in a kind of secret code to hide religious mysteries from the uninitiated. Imagine trying to solve a crossword puzzle where half the clues are missing and the other half are written in a private language you have only just discovered. Now multiply that single, frustrating puzzle by millions. That is the true scale of the task. A few thousand dedicated Egyptologists are staring at a mountain of untranslated fragments, from tiny scraps of papyrus to entire temple walls. The sheer volume is simply impossible for any human team to process in a dozen lifetimes. Every expert must choose where to focus their precious years of study, leaving countless other texts to wait in the shadows. This is where our silent witnesses find their champion. Artificial intelligence is not a silver-suited robot, but something far more suited to the task. Think of it as the world's most patient and tireless student. At its core, the AI used for this work is a pattern recognition system. It learns to read hieroglyphs in a way that mirrors how we teach a child. You show a child the letter over and over in different books and different handwriting until they can recognize it anywhere. Machine learning does the very same thing, but on a scale that defies human limits. We feed these systems thousands upon thousands of known hieroglyphic texts, each one a lesson. The AI analyzes every curve of a bird symbol, every line of a seated man, learning not just what each glyph looks like, but how they connect to form words, sentences, and entire stories. It processes more data in a single afternoon than a single scholar could in a lifetime, spotting subtle patterns and recurring phrases that are simply invisible to the naked eye. It never gets tired, it never gets frustrated by a faded inscription. It just learns relentlessly, building a digital understanding of a lost language. This digital student is now graduating, ready to tackle those crumbling texts that have resisted all previous attempts. So how exactly do we train this new kind of Egyptologist? What are the first lessons we give to a machine that has never seen the Nile? The training begins with a vast digital library of everything we already understand. Researchers feed the artificial intelligence system thousands of known hieroglyphic texts, from royal decrees to funerary prayers, each one paired with its definitive translation. This is the machine's textbook. Its first lesson is pure pattern recognition. It scans millions of symbols, learning that a specific, repeated shape, like a simple owl, consistently represents the sound for the letter M. It discovers that a tiny glyph of a leg does not mean a person is walking, but signifies the sound for the letter B. A small basket symbol translates to a hard K sound. The machine is not guessing. It is statistically mapping a universe of visual forms to a set of phonetic values and conceptual meanings, building a massive internal reference guide one glyph at a time. But learning the alphabet is only the beginning of its education. The true challenge lies in understanding how these symbols work together. Just as a child learns that words form sentences with rules, the AI analyzes the syntax and grammar of ancient Egyptian. It starts to recognize that the arrangement of symbols matters deeply. It learns that some glyphs are phonetic, spelling out the sounds of a word, while others are determinatives, silent symbols placed at the end of a word to clarify its category, like indicating a verb of motion or the name of a god. It discerns how verbs are formed and how sentences flow, spotting patterns in word order that even seasoned scholars might miss after a lifetime of study. This tireless student processes more grammatical structures in a day than a human could in a year, internalizing the rhythm and rules of a dead language until it can begin to read on its own. The textbooks for this digital student are not dusty papyrus scrolls but vast online libraries, built over decades by dedicated Egyptologists. The most crucial of these is the Thesaurus Linguae Egyptiae, a monumental digital dictionary and text archive. This is the fuel that powers the entire machine. It is a comprehensive database containing meticulously curated transliterations, translations, and high-resolution images of countless inscriptions. A transliteration is simply the process of writing a word from one alphabet into another, converting a hieroglyphic symbol into a Roman letter we can read. This provides the AI with a perfect bridge between the ancient script and a modern language it can understand. Without this foundational work of digitizing and cataloging, the artificial intelligence would have nothing to learn from. It would be a brilliant mind with no books to read. These databases are the structured data that allows the machine to find its patterns and make its predictions. For instance, it can analyze a high-resolution image of a temple wall, identify a sequence of symbols, and then cross-reference that sequence against thousands of known phrases in the thesaurus. It might find that a particular combination of a reed leaf, a water ripple, and an owl appears in 20 other texts, and in every single one, it is translated as the word for great house or pharaoh. Through this constant, massive cross-referencing, the AI builds its confidence, learning not just individual words but the very context in which they were used. This digital groundwork is what transforms the artificial intelligence from a simple pattern matcher into a true linguistic partner, capable of offering a probable reading for a text that has not been seen in 3,000 years. The proof of this new approach is already etched in digital stone. One of the first major successes came from a project focused on restoring broken inscriptions. A team presented their artificial intelligence with a photograph of a damaged temple wall. To a human eye, a key glyph was nothing more than a faint, ambiguous smudge. But the machine had seen this symbol thousands of times before in countless other contexts. It analyzed the remnant curves and the specific angle of the remaining lines, comparing them against its vast internal library. It then delivered its verdict with high statistical confidence, identifying the smudge as a specific hieroglyph for water, a symbol crucial to understanding the entire passage. A human expert might have spent days puzzling over that single mark, but the AI provided a data-driven suggestion in mere seconds, restoring a lost word to a prayer that had been silent for millennia. Another breakthrough involved filling in the blanks on a fragment of papyrus. This was not a royal decree, but a piece of personal correspondence, a letter that had been torn with entire sections of text missing. Researchers fed the surviving symbols into the system. The artificial intelligence did not just translate the visible words, it analyzed the grammatical structure and the common phrases of everyday Egyptian speech, predicting the most probable words and phrases that would have filled the empty spaces. It was not guessing wildly, it was using its deep knowledge of how the language worked to reconstruct the letter's likely meaning, suggesting the writer was discussing a shipment of grain or inquiring about a relative's health. For the first time, we could hear the echo of a complete conversation, not just the broken whispers that physical decay had left behind. Perhaps the most compelling validation came from a test of pure translation. Scholars gave the artificial intelligence a short, obscure text from a minor official's tomb that had never been satisfactorily translated. The system processed the sequence of symbols, cross-referencing it against every known text in its database. It then offered a new, coherent translation that fit the context of the tomb perfectly. When human experts reviewed the AI's work, they found its interpretation resolved long-standing grammatical quirks that had confused them for years. The machine had spotted a subtle linguistic pattern everyone else had missed, not through genius but through exhaustive, patient comparison. These are not science fiction fantasies. They are documented cases where a digital mind has helped to crack codes that resisted human effort for generations. This is not about replacing scholars, but about giving them a powerful new lens through which to see the past. So what happens when we point this powerful lens at the greatest unsolved mysteries of all? One of the most thrilling applications of this technology is the hunt for lost kings. While translating a farmer's letter is a profound discovery, finding the name of a forgotten pharaoh can rewrite history itself. Ancient Egyptian scribes had a special way of writing royal names, enclosing them within a distinctive oval loop called a cartouche. This was their way of setting a king's identity apart, circling it in a protective and sacred bond. Yet on countless temple walls and shattered monuments, these precious ovals are often cracked, faded, or entirely missing sections. For a human Egyptologist, staring at a half-erased cartouche is a monumental challenge. A few partial symbols might remain, but is that a sun disk or a loaf of bread? Is that a serpent or just a random crack in the stone? The clues are maddeningly faint. This is where the artificial intelligence's pattern recognition becomes a superpower. The system is trained on thousands of known cartouches, learning the precise visual grammar of royal names. It does not just see a curved line. It analyzes the specific curvature, the angle, the thickness of the stroke, comparing it against a database of every documented pharaoh's insignia. When it scans a damaged wall, it can first identify the faint outline of the cartouche oval itself, even if it is barely visible. Then, it looks at the fragments of symbols inside. Perhaps only 3 glyphs are clear enough for a human to see: a reed, a wave of water, and a pair of arms. The AI cross-references this partial sequence against all the royal names it knows. It might calculate that this specific combination of symbols has a 95% probability of belonging to the praenomen, or throne name, of a specific, poorly understood ruler from the 17th dynasty. In this way, a wall that was thought to be the work of a famous pharaoh might be correctly reattributed to a much more obscure one, restoring a lost piece of a dynasty's timeline. What if a cartouche contains symbols that do not match any known king at all? The AI can flag it as a potential anomaly, a strong candidate for a ruler whose name has been completely lost to history. This is no longer simple translation, it is digital archaeology uncovering identities buried for millennia. These damaged texts are the torn pages of history, and artificial intelligence is now learning to mend them with digital thread. The process is called textual inpainting, a term borrowed from the art of restoring damaged paintings. Just as a master restorer uses their knowledge of an artist's style to fill in a missing patch of canvas, the AI uses its deep understanding of ancient Egyptian grammar and vocabulary to fill in the gaps on a broken piece of stone or papyrus. It does not just guess, it calculates the most probable missing pieces based on everything it has learned. Imagine a sentence carved on a tomb wall where a large crack has destroyed several key glyphs. A human might see only a few surviving symbols before the break and a few after. The artificial intelligence, however, sees a complex puzzle. It analyzes the visible glyphs at the start of the sentence, recognizing them as the beginning of a common funerary formula. It then looks at the glyphs that reappear after the crack, identifying the closing part of a prayer. In the vast library of its memory, it searches for every other known instance of this formula. It knows how these spells are structured, the typical verbs they use, the standard epithets for the gods they invoke. From this deep contextual knowledge, it can generate a statistically likely reconstruction of the missing section, proposing the specific hieroglyphs that would have once filled the empty space. This is not a random word suggestion. It is a linguistically and historically plausible completion, based on patterns no single human could hold in their mind at once. The result is a restored voice, a completed thought that allows us to hear the entire prayer as it was meant to be heard, not just the broken whispers that time left behind. This digital restoration goes beyond famous tombs to the most humble of texts. A shattered piece of pottery used as a notepad for a grocery list or a personal note might have only a handful of words remaining. The AI can analyze the scribble, the informal handwriting style, and the few visible words. If it sees the symbol for barley and part of a numeral, it can suggest the full list was likely for measures of grain, beer, and bread, the staples of daily life. It is piecing together the quiet moments, the mundane details that truly tell us how an ancient people lived, loved, and worked. With every gap it fills, the artificial intelligence is not just predicting words. It is rebuilding a world, one probable phrase at a time. But this digital Egyptologist's greatest power might lie in its mastery of grammar. While recognizing symbols is one thing, understanding how they fit together to form meaning is an entirely different challenge. This is where artificial intelligence transitions from a simple decoder into a true grammar guardian. It delves into the intricate rules of Middle Egyptian syntax, learning the subtle dance of verb forms, noun genders, and sentence patterns that give the language its life. The machine analyzes thousands of correct sentences to understand the fundamental architecture of the language. It learns that a verb often comes at the very beginning of a sentence, a structure quite foreign to English. It internalizes the complex system of noun genders, recognizing that a masculine noun requires a specific set of accompanying adjectives and pronouns. It even grasps the nuanced use of participles and relative forms, grammatical constructions that can tie multiple ideas together in a single, elegant phrase. This deep grammatical knowledge allows the AI to do something remarkable. It can now act as a proofreader for human translations. When a scholar proposes an interpretation for a difficult passage, the artificial intelligence can check it against the established rules it has learned. If a proposed sentence structure violates the typical grammatical patterns of 1,000 other similar texts, the system can raise a flag. It might gently suggest that a verb is likely in a different form, or that a series of nouns are probably in a genitive relationship, meaning one possesses the other. This is not about finding fault, but about providing a powerful, data-driven second opinion. The machine becomes a collaborative partner, catching subtle errors that could stem from a faded glyph or a simple moment of human fatigue. It ensures that the final translation is not just a string of words, but a coherent, grammatically sound statement that an ancient scribe would have recognized as his own. This grammatical prowess becomes absolutely vital when confronting the most beautiful and baffling texts of all, the poetic and magical inscriptions. These are not simple lists of goods or straightforward historical accounts. They are filled with metaphors, rare grammatical constructions, and deliberate ambiguities meant to evoke mystery and power. A spell to protect a tomb might use a verb in an archaic form to sound more authoritative. A hymn to a god might intentionally break standard word order to create a rhythmic, chant-like quality. For a human translator, these passages are a labyrinth, but the artificial intelligence, with its exhaustive memory, can navigate this labyrinth by comparing the unusual text to every other known example of poetic or religious language in its database. It can identify that a strange verb form, while rare in administrative texts, actually appears frequently in other magical spells, establishing a pattern that confirms the text's purpose. It can detect the rhythmic repetition of certain sentence structures, revealing the cadence of an ancient prayer. By understanding the rules so completely, the AI can help us understand when and why the ancient Egyptians chose to beautifully break them. It allows us to hear not just the words of a spell, but the intended rhythm and power behind them. How many other hidden patterns and linguistic secrets are waiting to be uncovered, not in the grand pronouncements, but in the quiet grammar of a lost world? The ancient scribes did not always write for everyone to read. They sometimes wrote for the initiated, creating a secret language within a language known as cryptographic hieroglyphs. This was not a simple code, but a brilliant, playful manipulation of their own script. A scribe might replace a standard symbol with a rare, homophonic one that shared the same sound but looked completely different. He could write a word backwards or use a single, complex glyph to represent an entire concept that normally required several. These were intellectual games designed to conceal sacred knowledge, royal secrets, or magical formulas from the common populace, reserving their true meaning for the priesthood and the elite. This presents a monumental challenge for any translator. How can a machine trained on millions of standard, straightforward inscriptions learn to spot these deliberate acts of subterfuge? Can an artificial intelligence, a master of patterns, learn to recognize when a pattern is being beautifully broken? The answer lies not in teaching it more rules, but in teaching it to recognize creativity itself. The strategy begins by expanding the AI's education. Researchers feed it examples of known cryptographic texts that have already been deciphered by human experts. The machine studies these solved puzzles, learning the tricks of the ancient scribble trade. It analyzes how a horned viper glyph, which normally represents the F sound, might be used to write the word for divinity, because the Egyptian word for God also began with that same F sound. It learns that a cluster of symbols depicting a sail, a placenta, and a loaf of bread might not be a bizarre shopping list, but a clever ruse spelling out the name of a powerful goddess. The AI is not just memorizing vocabulary anymore, it is learning a new form of visual punning. It starts to build a statistical model of deviation, understanding what constitutes a normal arrangement of symbols and what stands out as a probable cryptographic experiment. When it then encounters a completely new, undeciphered text, it can flag sequences that seem grammatically odd or visually unusual based on its vast knowledge of standard writing. It might highlight a glyph that is out of place for its time period, or a word that seems to be spelled in a needlessly complex way. It then generates hypotheses, testing various phonetic substitutions and symbolic rearrangements against its database, searching for a combination that produces a coherent, meaningful phrase. In essence, the machine learns to think like a scribe trying to be clever, spotting the hidden linguistic threads that connect a baffling image to a profound idea. It is slowly learning to read between the lines, or in this case, between the symbols, to hear the whispers meant only for the inner circle of the temple. These cryptographic riddles are not the only texts where AI can bridge vast linguistic divides. A collection of clay tablets discovered at the site of Amarna offers a different kind of mystery, one written in a foreign tongue for Egyptian eyes. Known as the Amarna letters, these 382 tablets are the diplomatic archives of the pharaohs. They are not written in hieroglyphs, but in Akkadian cuneiform, the international language of diplomacy in the ancient Near East. These are the incoming messages from foreign kings, the frantic reports from Egyptian vassals in Canaan, and the delicate negotiations between superpowers. They mention kings and queens whose names are often difficult to match with the Egyptian records, and they describe battles and treaties that our hieroglyphic sources only hint at. This is where the artificial intelligence's ability to cross-reference different data sets becomes a superpower for history itself. The AI can be trained to read both the cuneiform of the Amarna letters and the hieroglyphs of Egypt's own monuments. It can scan a letter from a king of Mitanni, a powerful empire in modern-day Syria, who writes of sending his daughter to the Egyptian court with a lavish dowry. The machine can then pivot to search every known Egyptian hieroglyphic text for any mention of a foreign princess from Mitanni. It is not just looking for a name match. It is analyzing the context, the dates, the associated events. Perhaps the Egyptian scribes referred to this princess by a different, Egyptianized name. The AI can find that name by linking the timeline from the Amarna letter to a hieroglyphic inscription describing the arrival of a great royal wife from a distant land. Suddenly, a vague historical event snaps into sharp focus. We can now understand the political marriage that sealed a fragile peace between two rival empires. The same technique can clarify obscure military campaigns. A vassal's letter from a city in Canaan might plead for Egyptian troops to defend against mysterious invaders called the Habaru. This term has baffled scholars for over a century. Are they the early Hebrews? Are they simply bands of nomadic raiders? The AI can take this term and scour every other Amarna letter, every hieroglyphic text from the period, and every archaeological report from the region, searching for patterns. It might find that mentions of the Habaru spike in letters from a specific cluster of city-states during a precise 20-year window, a pattern a human might miss when reading the documents one by one. This data-driven insight could finally pinpoint who these people were and the true nature of the threat they posed. By connecting the dots between these two separate worlds of writing, the artificial intelligence is not just translating words. It is weaving together the torn threads of international diplomacy, rebuilding the complex web of alliances and betrayals that shaped the Bronze Age world. Perhaps no text is better suited for this digital translation than the Book of the Dead. This was not a single book, but a sprawling, evolving collection of nearly 200 spells, prayers, and incantations, a customized guidebook for the soul's perilous journey through the underworld. Every copy was unique, commissioned by a wealthy family and inscribed on a papyrus scroll to be buried with the deceased. For over 1,500 years, scribes copied and recopied these texts, adding new spells, altering old ones, and creating countless regional versions. This has left us with a mountain of fragments, a library of the dead that is both vast and deeply inconsistent. No two copies are exactly alike, and for over a century, scholars have struggled to map this complex textual tradition by hand. Now, artificial intelligence is being trained to read this entire library at once, to see the patterns no single person could. The first task is to trace the evolution of the spells themselves. A spell to protect the heart, for instance, appears in hundreds of copies across many centuries. A human scholar might study a few dozen of these, but the AI can analyze every single known example. It can detect the subtle shifts in wording, the slow replacement of one hieroglyph for another with a similar meaning, the gradual introduction of a new divine name. It can then map these changes geographically and chronologically, showing how a spell that originated in Thebes slowly spread north to Memphis, acquiring a local flavor along the way. This is not just about tracking words, it is about tracking beliefs, revealing how the ancient Egyptian understanding of the afterlife itself transformed over generations. The system can also identify regional scriptoria, the workshops where these scrolls were produced, by analyzing handwriting styles, common errors, and unique spell combinations. The AI can begin to group scrolls into families, suggesting they came from the same source, perhaps even from the same master scribe. This allows us to reconstruct an entire intellectual and spiritual industry, understanding how knowledge was produced and sold to those seeking immortality. The most immediate application, however, lies in the tomb itself. Imagine an archaeologist carefully unrolling a new papyrus from a recently discovered burial. It is a new copy of the Book of the Dead created for a woman named Tench, a chantress of the god Ammon. The scroll is fragile and time has rendered some sections faint. In the past, translating it would have been the work of months or years. Today, they can photograph the scroll and feed the images to the artificial intelligence. The system instantly recognizes the text for what it is. It identifies the specific spells present, numbering them according to the standard scholarly classification. It then provides a preliminary word-for-word translation in seconds, but it goes far deeper. It analyzes the specific combination of spells Tench chose. Why does her scroll include an unusually long version of the spell for not dying a second time, but omit the common spell for breathing air? The AI can cross-reference her selection against thousands of others, revealing that this particular combination was popular among priestesses in Thebes during the 21st dynasty. This is no longer just a translation, it is a psychological and spiritual profile. Her chosen spells reveal her deepest hopes and her most profound fears. The emphasis on a spell to not perish hints at a specific anxiety about annihilation. The inclusion of a spell to transform into a swallow suggests she longed for the freedom to move between the world of the living and the dead. Through the lens of the machine, we do not just read a religious text. We hear the personal faith of a single individual, her unique plea for eternity, spoken across 3,000 years. What other intimate secrets are waiting in those silent, rolled-up scrolls ready to be heard once more? Yet the story of writing in the Nile Valley does not end with the last Egyptian hieroglyph. Further south, along the great river's bend, another powerful civilization rose to create a script of its own. This is Meroitic, the written language of the Kingdom of Kush, a realm that once rivaled Egypt and ruled as its pharaohs during the 25th dynasty. While their pyramids still stand in modern-day Sudan, their words remain almost completely silent. Meroitic is one of the last great undeciphered scripts of the ancient world, and it represents the ultimate test for artificial intelligence. Unlike Egyptian, there is no Meroitic Rosetta Stone, no bilingual text that gives us a clear key. This forces the AI to work from a place of profound uncertainty, relying on its raw computational power to find meaning where human intuition has hit a wall. The system cannot be given a textbook translation because no textbook exists. Instead, it must operate like a cryptographer staring at an alien alphabet, searching for any statistical anomaly that might signal a starting point. It begins by analyzing the script's basic components, isolating 23 distinct signs that make up the Meroitic alphabet. It then combs through the entire known corpus of inscriptions, which includes royal epithets on temple walls, funerary texts from tombs, and even casual graffiti. It looks for the simplest patterns first. Where does a certain sequence of symbols repeat? does a particular group of signs frequently appear at the beginning of texts, perhaps marking the start of a royal name or a common prayer. It searches for what linguists call a syntactic anchor, a fixed point in the grammatical structure from which it can begin to build outward. For instance, the AI might notice that a specific two-symbol combination appears on many royal statues in the same physical location, leading to the hypothesis that it means king or ruler. Another set of symbols might always precede a carved image of a person offering a gift to a god, suggesting it could be a verb like gives or dedicates. This is linguistic detective work at its most fundamental, building our understanding of a language from the ground up, one statistical correlation at a time. Without a bilingual text, every potential translation is a hypothesis waiting for confirmation. The AI generates thousands of these hypotheses, testing them against the growing body of contextual evidence. It is a slow, painstaking process of elimination, a digital mind sifting through the sands of a lost language, hoping to find a single, solid stone on which to build. This very power, the ability to process millions of data points in an instant, raises a profound and critical question. How do we know if the machine is right? When an artificial intelligence delivers a translation of a 3,000-year-old spell, can we simply take its word for it? This dilemma is known in computer science as the black box problem. Some of the most complex and powerful machine learning models operate in ways that are not entirely transparent, even to their own creators. We can see the input, the untranslated hieroglyphs, and we can see the output, the proposed English sentence. But the intricate labyrinth of calculations and weighted probabilities the system used to get from one to the other can remain shrouded in mystery. It might give us a perfect translation, but it cannot always sit down with us and point to the specific grammatical rule or contextual clue that led it there. For a field like Egyptology, where every translated word can reshape our understanding of history, this is a serious concern. We are not just decoding a language, we are reconstructing a civilization. A single mistranslated verb could turn a peaceful trade agreement into a declaration of war, or misrepresent the nature of an entire religious ritual. Blind trust is not an option. This is precisely why the future of this field does not lie in machines replacing scholars, but in a powerful new partnership. The goal is to move from a black box to what researchers call explainable artificial intelligence. This means building systems that do not just provide an answer, but can also show their work. Imagine an AI that, when it translates a phrase, can highlight the specific hieroglyphs it focused on and list the other known texts where similar sequences appear. It could explain that it chose a particular meaning for an ambiguous symbol because the surrounding grammatical structure matches a pattern found in 70% of other funerary texts. This turns the artificial intelligence from an oracle into a collaborator. The Egyptologist brings their deep, intuitive understanding of cultural context, historical nuance, and scholarly debate. The machine brings its superhuman capacity for data analysis and pattern recognition. Together, they can cross-examine each other. A scholar might look at the AI's proposed translation and sense that something is off, that the proposed meaning feels anachronistic or culturally inconsistent. They can then ask the system to justify its reasoning, to provide the statistical evidence behind its choices. This dialogue forces both human and machine to refine their understanding. The human expert might discover a new linguistic pattern they had never considered, while the artificial intelligence learns to weigh cultural context more heavily in its future analyses. This rigorous back-and-forth verification is the bedrock of reliable discovery. It ensures that every whisper we hear from the ancient world is not just the voice of a machine, but an echo carefully verified and understood. This new digital eye scanning the past may be looking through a very old, very human lens. The very data we feed these systems, the thousands of translated texts from the Thesaurus Linguae Egyptiae, are not raw, objective facts. They are the product of generations of Western scholars, men who arrived in Egypt with their own worldviews, their own religious beliefs, and their own colonial-era assumptions. When a 19th century linguist translated an ancient Egyptian word for chaos or enemy, he might have instinctively chosen terms that reflected his own culture's fears and prejudices. An eye trained on those translations now inherits that same bias, learning to associate certain Egyptian concepts with the specific Western ideas its teachers used. The machine is not just learning a language, it is absorbing a century-old interpretation of that language. Is it revealing what a priest in Thebes actually meant, or is it simply repackaging what a professor in Berlin thought he meant 150 years ago? This is not a hypothetical problem. Consider the translation of a word like Heka, a fundamental force in Egyptian thought. Early Western scholars, steeped in a worldview that separated magic from religion, often translated Heka simply as magic, a term that carries connotations of superstition and trickery. But a deeper, less biased reading suggests Heka was far more. It was the creative power of speech itself, the divine energy that brought the world into being. To reduce it to magic is to fundamentally misunderstand its role in Egyptian society. An eye trained only on those older translations will blindly perpetuate that misunderstanding, filtering every new text it reads through a diminished and inaccurate framework. The danger is a digital echo chamber where the machine reinforces the same cultural blind spots we have been trying to overcome for decades. It risks repainting the ancient world in a faded colonial color, presenting old guesses as new digital truth. So how do we teach a machine to unlearn the prejudices of its human teachers? The solution lies in the data, but also in the people who guide it. The next crucial step is to diversify the training sets, feeding the artificial intelligence newer translations from Egyptian and African scholars who bring their own cultural and linguistic perspectives to the text. It requires building systems that are aware of their own potential for bias, that can flag when a proposed translation relies too heavily on an outdated or contested interpretation. This transforms the AI from a passive repeater of the past into an active participant in a global scholarly conversation, capable of highlighting discrepancies and offering alternative readings. The ultimate goal is not to create a machine that thinks for itself, but to build one that helps us think more critically about our own inherited understanding, challenging us to listen for the true voice of ancient Egypt, not just the echo of our own. This new collaboration is already transforming the dusty archives of Egyptology into dynamic workshops of discovery. Think of the future scholar not as a lonely figure hunched over a papyrus, but as the conductor of a digital orchestra. The artificial intelligence acts as the entire string section, rapidly processing millions of data points to produce a harmonious foundation of raw translation and pattern recognition. It handles the tedious, soul-crushing work of comparing thousands of nearly identical administrative texts to track the price of linen over 3 centuries, or scanning every known cartouche to find a matching fragment. This frees the human expert to be the soloist, bringing the melody to life. With the grunt work handled by their digital assistant, the Egyptologist can focus on the profound questions of why. Why did a particular pharaoh choose this specific epithet for his temple? What does the sudden appearance of a rare mythological beast in a provincial tomb tell us about the spread of religious ideas? The machine provides the what and the where, but the human provides the so what. A computer can translate the words of a love poem found in a worker's tomb, but only a person can hear the ache of loneliness in its meter, connecting it to the universal human experience of separation and longing. The AI might flag a strange grammatical construction in a royal decree, but the scholar can weave that anomaly into the broader tapestry of a pharaoh's political insecurities, understanding it as a deliberate act of propaganda. This partnership leverages the strengths of both minds, creating a whole that is far greater than the sum of its parts. the machine's tireless eyes and the human's compassionate insight are together unlocking histories we were never meant to hear. What long-lost story will this new kind of explorer tell us tomorrow? The dust has barely settled on a newly exposed wall deep inside a forgotten tomb. An archaeologist carefully brushes away 3,000 years of sand and grit, revealing the first crisp lines of a carved inscription. In the past, this moment would be followed by weeks of meticulous drawing, photography, and consultation before even a preliminary translation could be attempted. But now, a quiet revolution is unfolding right at the trowel's edge. The archaeologist adjusts a pair of lightweight augmented reality glasses, and something miraculous happens. As her gaze passes over the ancient symbols, faint, shimmering lines of text appear, hovering just above the stone. These are not definitive answers, but intelligent suggestions provided by an artificial intelligence system linked to her device. The system, trained on millions of known hieroglyphs, processes the live camera feed, recognizes the sequence of a vulture glyph followed by a reed and a sun disk, and instantly overlays a tentative translation. It suggests the phrase might read, "Beloved of the goddess Mut." This is no longer science fiction. It is the emerging reality of computational archaeology, bringing the power of a digital scribe directly into the burial chamber. This real-time assistance transforms the very process of discovery. Instead of just uncovering a silent wall, the team is immediately engaged with its meaning. The AI's suggestion about the goddess Mut provides a crucial on-the-spot clue. It prompts the lead archaeologist to direct her team to look for other symbols associated with that deity. Perhaps they will find a carved depiction of the vulture-headed goddess nearby, confirming the inscription's context. This instant feedback loop turns excavation from a slow, methodical unveiling into a dynamic conversation with the past. The machine acts as a brilliant, silent research assistant, offering possibilities that guide human intuition in real time. The implications are profound. In a complex tomb with multiple chambers, understanding a single inscription as it is revealed can dictate the entire strategy for the dig. If the AI tentatively identifies a sequence of glyphs as part of a standard offering formula, it signals that the team is likely in an antechamber for gifts, not the main burial room. This allows the archaeologists to adjust their focus, perhaps shifting to a different sealed doorway. The technology helps prioritize efforts, preserving resources and ensuring the most fragile finds are handled with the correct contextual understanding from the very first moment they see the light. This is not about replacing the painstaking work of epigraphers who will later create the definitive, hand-drawn facsimiles of the inscriptions. It is about empowering the field team with immediate, actionable intelligence. The real magic happens when the system encounters something truly unique. Suppose the glasses hover over a car touch that the AI does not immediately recognize. It flags the royal name as anomalous, noting that the specific combination of a falcon, a sickle, and a hill country glyph does not match any known pharaoh in its primary database. This immediate red flag is itself a monumental discovery, made not in a library 6 months later, but in the dust and heat of the tomb. It tells the archaeologists right then and there that they may have just found evidence of a lost or poorly attested ruler, and they can immediately begin searching for corroborating evidence in the surrounding art and artifacts. This fusion of human curiosity and machine intelligence in the field is closing the gap between discovery and understanding, letting us listen to the whispers of history almost as soon as we uncover its lips. This translation from symbol to sound is not the final step, but the beginning of a true resurrection. Since hieroglyphs are fundamentally a phonetic script, a confident translation from the artificial intelligence gives us the individual building blocks of speech. We have the words, and now linguistic science can help us give them a voice. Several pioneering projects are taking these translated texts and feeding them into sophisticated speech synthesis models. These models are not simply digital voices reading English words. They are complex systems trained on what we know of ancient Egyptian phonology, the sounds the language likely used. They incorporate data from Coptic, the final, direct descendant of ancient Egyptian, which provides crucial clues about vowel sounds and intonation that the hieroglyphic script itself omits. The result is a synthesized voice that can read a translated prayer or a poem aloud, not in a modern language, but in a carefully reconstructed approximation of its original tongue. For the first time in over 2,000 years, the air vibrates with the sounds of a pharaoh's decree or a priest's invocation. This is more than a translation, it is a sensory experience. You are not just reading a spell to protect the heart, you are hearing its rhythmic, hypnotic cadence, feeling the weight of its consonants and the flow of its vowels. You can listen to a love poem and hear the subtle alliteration and rhyme that made it beautiful to an ancient ear, elements often lost in a printed translation on a page. This auditory dimension adds a profound layer of understanding. The same spell that looks straightforward written down might reveal itself as a powerful chant when spoken, its repetitive structure designed to induce a trance-like state. A royal name, when heard with its full, resonant pronunciation, carries an authority that its silent, symbolic representation on a wall cannot fully convey. We are moving from observing a silent film of history to hearing its first tentative soundtrack. What forgotten song or desperate plea, perfectly preserved in grammar and vocabulary, is now waiting for its final ingredient, the breath of life, to be heard once more? The true power of this technology extends far beyond academic journals and into the very economy of history itself. When artificial intelligence dramatically accelerates the translation of hieroglyphs, it unlocks a cascade of practical benefits that touch everyone from the field archaeologist to the casual tourist. The most immediate impact is on the speed of discovery. Right now, the path from an excavated inscription to a published paper can take years, as a small number of experts painstakingly copy, translate, and interpret each symbol. This creates a massive backlog of unpublished material, a hidden library of finds waiting in storage rooms around the world. With an artificial intelligence providing rapid, preliminary translations, this bottleneck shatters. A team returning from a dig could process their epigraphic photographs in weeks instead of years, releasing their findings to the global community while public interest is still fresh. This faster publication cycle means more knowledge enters the public domain more quickly, fueling new research and new questions at an unprecedented rate. But the revolution does not stop in the academy. Walk into any major museum with an Egyptian collection, and you will see countless artifacts labeled with little more than a name and a date. A beautiful scarab ring sits in a case, its inscription a mystery to 99% of visitors. Now, imagine pointing your phone at that same case. Your camera captures the tiny hieroglyphs on the ring's bezel, and an instant later, your screen displays a translation. It reads, "Amun-Ra, Lord of the Thrones of the Two Lands, grant life to the Lady Taweret." Suddenly, that piece of jewelry transforms from a mere ornament into a personal story. You learn it belonged to a woman named Taweret, who placed her faith in the chief god for protection and life. This instant, deep access turns a passive museum visit into an active dialogue with the past, making entire collections feel alive and immediate. This same principle reshapes cultural tourism at the source. Guides at sites like Karnak or the Valley of the Kings could use tablet-based applications to provide real-time translations of any inscription a tourist points to. A faded text on a forgotten pillar becomes a priest's prayer spoken aloud through a speaker. A complex scene of a pharaoh making an offering to a god is instantly explained, revealing the political and religious motives behind the art. Visitors are no longer just looking at beautiful ruins, they are understanding the specific events and beliefs that shaped them, creating a much richer and more memorable experience. When history speaks this directly, people listen and they tell others. This enhanced engagement is a powerful driver for cultural tourism, encouraging longer visits, more return trips, and a deeper appreciation for the host country's heritage. The whispers of ancient scribes, amplified by artificial intelligence, are becoming a powerful voice for education, accessibility, and sustainable economic growth. The silent stones of Egypt are just the beginning. The very same artificial intelligence that is learning to read hieroglyphs is in truth a universal key, a prototype for a grander project that could unlock lost voices from every corner of the ancient world. This is the blueprint for a global Rosetta Net, a digital system designed to listen for the whispers of entire civilizations that have fallen silent. Consider the mysterious clay tablets of Crete, inscribed with the elegant, swirling script known as Linear A. For over a century, it has defied every attempt at translation, its meaning locked away in symbols that predate even the Greek myths. We know it was used by the brilliant Minoan civilization, a people who built vast, labyrinthine palaces without any defensive walls, a society that seems to have thrived on art and trade rather than conquest. What stories do these tablets hold? Are they temple inventories, royal decrees, or perhaps the very poetry of a culture we can only understand through its silent ruins? The pattern recognition power of artificial intelligence could be trained on these symbols, searching for the faintest statistical fingerprints of a language structure, hunting for the syntactic anchors that could finally give the Minoans a voice. Then there is the even greater enigma of the Indus Valley script, found on thousands of small, carved seals across what is now Pakistan and India. This writing system is one of the most stubborn puzzles in all of archaeology. The civilization that created it was one of the largest of the ancient world, a sophisticated urban society with advanced plumbing and grid-planned cities, and yet we cannot read a single word they wrote. The script is short, with most inscriptions containing only 4 or 5 symbols, making it incredibly difficult for humans to find enough context to break the code. This is precisely where a machine's patience becomes our greatest asset. An artificial intelligence could analyze every single known example simultaneously, mapping the relationships between symbols, noting which ones consistently appear together and in what order. It could search for patterns that might represent names of rulers, gods, or commodities. It could even cross-reference the symbols with the archaeological context of where each seal was found, looking for correlations that might reveal if a specific glyph is associated with a grain storage site or a temple complex. The techniques being perfected on Egyptian hieroglyphs, the grammatical modeling, the contextual analysis, the cryptographic detection, are a training ground for this much larger mission. Every time the system correctly fills a gap in a broken prayer or identifies a lost pharaoh, it is not just solving an Egyptian mystery. It is learning how to think like a decipherer, building a flexible toolkit that can be adapted to any script, anywhere. The ultimate goal is a single, adaptable intelligence that can be pointed at the undeciphered writings of the Minoans, the Indus Valley, the Olmecs, or the Rongorongo of Easter Island, and begin its patient work of listening. We are building the first universal translator for the echoes of human history. How many other lost worlds are waiting for their moment to speak, and what will they tell us about ourselves? Yet for all its digital brilliance, this new translator has profound and important limitations. Even the most advanced artificial intelligence cannot grasp the soul of a language, the cultural whispers that lie between the lines. It excels with clear patterns and vast datasets, but it stumbles when faced with the beautiful ambiguity that defines human communication. A single, faded hieroglyph might have 3 possible meanings, and the correct choice depends entirely on a cultural context the machine cannot feel. It might see a glyph of a man with his hand to his mouth and correctly identify it as relating to eating or speaking, but only a human Egyptologist steeped in the literature would recognize that in a specific funerary text, this symbol carries a deeper, metaphorical meaning of silence and respect for the sacred journey of the dead. The machine lacks that intuitive sense, that gut feeling for nuance that comes from a lifetime of cultural immersion. This extends to the ancient sense of humor and wordplay. A scribe might have written a pun using a glyph that sounds like another word to make a joke for his colleagues. The artificial intelligence would likely translate it literally, completely missing the wit and the clever wink from across the millennia. It processes language, but it does not understand the people who spoke it. Its greatest weakness is its reliance on the data we provide. An artificial intelligence trained only on the formal, state-approved texts from royal tombs will struggle to make sense of a crude, hastily scrawled message left by a worker in a quarry. That informal graffiti uses slang, irregular grammar, and local idioms that simply do not appear in the machine's pristine textbook. It is like a scholar who has only ever read legal documents trying to understand a modern text message. The cultural gap is simply too wide. Furthermore, if its training data is skewed, its translations will be skewed. Should the majority of its learned texts come from a single time period or a single region, it will interpret every new discovery through that narrow lens, potentially misstating objects or misattributing styles. Most critically, the system is paralyzed by true novelty. It works by finding parallels, by matching new patterns against old, known ones. When it encounters a phrase or a symbol that is completely unique, with no precedent in its entire database, it has no framework for understanding. It cannot have a sudden flash of inspiration or make a brilliant, intuitive leap. It can only report an anomaly. The discovery of a truly unknown pharaoh's name or a previously unattested religious ritual would leave the machine silent, waiting for a human mind to provide the first, crucial spark of context. The artificial intelligence is an unparalleled tool for finding the pieces, but it is the human scholar who must still assemble the puzzle and understand the picture it reveals. Behind the digital resurrection of these ancient voices are real people in modern labs, turning science fiction into scholarly fact. At institutions like Stanford University's Center for Spatial and Textual Analysis, researchers are building the next generation of machine learning tools. Their projects go beyond simple translation, teaching artificial intelligence to analyze the very handwriting of the scribes, identifying individual authors based on the unique slant of a reed brush or the spacing between glyphs. Across the globe, the Institute for Mediterranean Studies in Crete is adapting these same Egyptian-trained models to attack the puzzle of linear A, proving the technology is a versatile key for many locked doors. In the commercial sphere, companies like Google have partnered with museums through their arts and culture division, using their vast computational resources to scan and digitize entire papyrus collections, creating the raw fuel for these linguistic engines. This is not a solitary endeavor. It is a global, collaborative network of historians, computer scientists, and linguists, all sharing code and data in an open-source race against time. The goal is a living, breathing digital ecosystem for ancient languages, one that constantly learns and updates its understanding with every new inscription uncovered. These labs are the workshops where the past is being meticulously rewired for the future, ensuring that the final word on ancient Egypt will not be written by a machine, but by a new kind of human curiosity, amplified by silicon and code. This revolution is not confined to university labs or museum archives. It is unfolding right now on the screens of ordinary people around the world, and you can be a part of it. The immense task of preparing data for these brilliant artificial intelligence systems relies on a collective human effort, a global team of digital scribes. Online citizen science platforms have become the new training grounds for our machine learners. On websites like Zooniverse, anyone with an internet connection can contribute to real Egyptological research. You might be presented with a high-resolution photograph of a papyrus fragment, its surface covered in faded Inkai symbols. Your job is simple but profoundly important. You click and tag what you see. Is that a bird, a serpent, a seated man? Each tag you place is a data point, a lesson for the waiting artificial intelligence. When thousands of people perform this same task, their collective clicks create a massive, verified dataset of human observations. This dataset is the essential fuel that teaches the machine to see with greater accuracy and confidence. It learns to distinguish a true hieroglyph from a random stain or a crack in the papyrus because it has seen how thousands of human eyes have interpreted the same mark. You are not just playing a game, you are helping to build the very eyes through which a new generation of tools will view the ancient world. Every tagged fragment brings us one step closer to hearing a complete sentence from a lost letter or a forgotten prayer. This is a partnership on a global scale where human curiosity guides machine intelligence, and together we are slowly giving voice to an entire civilization. What story will your click help to tell? From silent stone to whispered words, we have traced the incredible journey of a lost language finding its voice. Hieroglyphs that resisted understanding for centuries are now being read by a patient digital mind, revealing pharaohs, restoring prayers, and piecing together the everyday lives of a civilization that has been silent for millennia. This is not the cold, calculated work of a machine replacing human genius. It is the opposite. Artificial intelligence is a torch, a brilliant new tool we have forged to shine into the darkest, most forgotten corners of our own history, illuminating paths that were once too faint for any human eye to follow. It fuels our most fundamental curiosity, answering old questions so compelling new ones can rise in their place. The story of ancient Egypt is being rewritten not by silicon, but by a partnership, a collaboration between the tireless memory of the machine and the boundless imagination of the human spirit. So now we turn to you. With this new key in our hands, which locked door would you most want to open? Which untranslated mystery from any corner of the ancient world do you dream of hearing solved? Share your choice in the comments below and join us as we continue this adventure, exploring where technology and history meet to resurrect the echoes of our shared past.